Hello and welcome to Conversations with Courageous Educators. I'm your host, Luke George. Today's guest is actually not your regular principal or consultant, but a 4-year experienced classroom teacher who caught my eye due to what she achieved in such a small amount of time. Maggie Bott is a teacher who inspires young people to aim for the stars. Limitations are just thoughts in your head, she says, which is great for mainstream classroom. But the difference is that Maggie is an education support teacher. Her students have their own challenges. And as you will hear, she is a courageous educator wanting to make a difference under trying conditions. Hello, Maggie Bott, and how are you today?
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm very honoured to be here. Feeling good, had 7 weeks off on holidays, which is nice.
Oh, it's a great time to be talking then while you're nice and relaxed and calm and not in the middle of all of that action, chaos. I suppose, that chaos. Yes, the sort of chaos that we want to control.
Yes, you caught me at a good time.
Fantastic. All right, so let's just get a bit of a handle on why you're going to be here today. So my first question is, what's the difference between an education support teacher and a mainstream teacher?
There's a lot of things that cross over between the two. So you have in mainstream, it's a place for kids that have diagnosed disabilities and that don't have disabilities. An education support classroom is just those students that have a diagnosed disability that needs individualized support or attention, whether that be with academics, behavior, or communication. A main difference is that in mainstream, you are teaching the kids to learn, and in education support, you're teaching them how to learn. So you might be needing to teach the kids how to hold a pencil, how to sit in a chair, and they might be having that goal all the way up until year 12 because it's a lot more of the small progress with them. Another really big difference is in mainstream, you've got between 24 and 32 students, and you're usually by yourself. So you're doing the assessment, the reporting, the teaching, the differentiation. You're doing it all by yourself, which can be really challenging. But you're usually doing it to kids that are about the same level. So you've always got some kids that are going to be behind their year level. No matter where they are, you're going to be having kids that are above and they're exceeding the expectation of their year level. But you're kind of teaching to a majority group of about, for example, year 3 students. In ed support, you've got 10 kids, which is a lot less. You've also got between 3 to 4 EAs that are in the classroom at the same time. So you're managing kids and adults, both behavior, communication, everything. But those 10 kids are all at 10 different levels. They could be some could be sitting at year level, but just can't be in a mainstream room due to behavior or a lack of communication. But you might have kids in year 3 that are sitting below kindy level. They don't know how to sit in a chair or they're struggling to be in a classroom setting. So you're giving a lot of individualized attention and you're getting them ready to be able to learn the academics.
Wow. Excellent explanation. A couple of words there I heard was the mainstream teaching them to learn and at education support how to learn.
Yeah.
And I reckon that's a really nice differentiation. And also the class number, the sizes, that's pretty, sometimes 25, 30 and down to 10.
Yes.
Then you've also got 4 EAs involved as well. So what sort of, when you talk about diagnosed disabilities, what's a few examples of what that looks like?
So, for example, last year in my class, I had a few students that had Down syndrome. We also had a student with an intellectual disability. Majority of the kids in my class were diagnosed with autism, and that was ranging from different levels of their diagnosis. But a common theme in my class last year was the struggle to have any emotional regulation, which I find is a theme across most diagnosed disabilities and being a bit of a challenge to manage. It's just their ability to be in a classroom And if something goes wrong, not absolutely lose it, or to feel not like that they're a failure in themselves, because I find that's what they struggle with the most, and then they get upset, obviously, like we all
Yeah.
do.
So having, five adults and 10 children, at first it seems like, wow, that seems like a fantastic ratio. But just the way you described it then, even within your 10 children, you have another big range as well, from Down syndrome, autism. Like there's a lot of things happening. And that last bit that you talked about in regards to emotional regulation, really difficult. Emotions hit in, boom, we're all away. And what I'm hearing, I suppose, over a period of time, is that part of your, that's pretty your job, is to try and get these students to be able to regulate their emotions, sit still for just a little bit while, just for a while, and get that understanding of what learning looks like, which must be, it's very courageous. It's an amazing skill you must have. So, what brought you to specialising in this particular area?
Mm, it's a very like niche little area I found. Um, in my first year, I feel like a lot of teachers would experience this. You're in mainstream, you've got your 24 kids, you're having a hard time as a grad teacher, and you're leaning on the teachers around you as like mentors. I had a lot of students in my first year that were diagnosed with autism, and I was struggling. I was like, I don't know how to support these kids in this space. So I would work quite closely with the ed support teachers in my school. And then they would give me feedback and tips and, come in and observe and support me and then support these students. And through seeing their classrooms and their skills and level of expertise in the space, I was just obsessed. I idolized these teachers for years. They're now my friends, which is really nice. But I was then went to the school and I was like, this is such an amazing space. The like the rewards that you get from helping these students and their families, it's you can't beat that feeling. So I went and I asked for years to, keep being trained up in the space, keep being observing them. I just feel like once you see the class, you don't know what it's like until you see it, and then you see it and you can't go back. I think it's the best.
Now, that's interesting. I love that word obsession. I love the word passion. This is what makes that courageous educator. And then you'll talk just that little piece when you're saying about what my classroom would look like. Now, in the mainstream classroom, I see a lot of children's work around the side,
Mhm.
lots of things hanging from the ceiling, a few generic commercial posters with a few rules and things, and a few books and puzzles and stuff. What sort of classroom does your classroom look like in the area of ed support?
Yeah, my classroom, I'm quite lucky with where my classroom is in the school. We have a door that backs onto a playground. So we have the ability for our kids to go and have a lot of brain breaks and a bit of a run around because movement really helps these students. We've also got, I like to hang up a lot of our craft and work because the kids feel such a sense of achievement and pride when their parents or when other staff or teachers or students come into the class. We have an area of the room that I call as our calm down space. It's our calm down corner. I've had one even in mainstream and ed support. I feel like it really helps the students. They know that when they go in the corner, that they're not going to be interrupted if they're having some time to relax. We've got bean bags, we've got lots of sensory toys, so squishies, we've got teddies, weighted blankets. It's quite a dark corner of the room, and it's kind of I used to have these rainbow little curtains that would fall down so that we can see through. But then when you're sitting in there as the child, you feel like you're not being stared at by everyone else in the room. We also have a lot of posters that are like, how big is your problem? How can we help you? Who can you see? Who are your safe people in the class? A lot of pictures of the staff so that if they're struggling to communicate with their words, they can point or they can just bring you something to your face. So I find
Mm.
it's quite similar to a mainstream room, but there's a lot of those special little parts. There's a little area that's a sensory tray. So they just pull out the drawer and there's a bunch of different toys in there, like timers, sand, Play-Doh, a lot of puzzles, books. Yeah, it's a really nice
Mm.
space.
Wow. So I suppose it's stimulating. You did say
Yeah.
it's similar to a mainstream, but it's also that space where when something's happening, there's an immediacy that we can move that environment quickly,
Yes.
and be it behind the rainbow curtains or be it into a quick tray with some Play-Doh that we can touch, be it that I can't speak because of my emotional regulation, and then I can contact that teacher, my friend.
Hmm.
So it's obviously like there's a lot of awareness there that everybody's understanding that we need to be able to move and be agile quickly.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of we make sure not to keep too much on the tables or the desks because if there is someone that's having some big feelings, we don't want there to be anything left out where they could potentially hurt themselves or someone else. We just don't want to put them in a vulnerable position. So we try to keep the classroom as clean and safe as possible while still having areas for the kids that they need it.
That's beautiful description. Now, the big piece that when I was at your school just recently was that I noticed that there was on the wall, there is a Teacher of the Year 2024 West Australian Support Schools Principal Association winner. And proudly underneath it said Maggie Bott. Now, it just looks beautiful in the foyer of the school. And the interesting thing is that you're been teaching for 4 years, and you
Hmm.
actually won this in the first year that you were a full, controlling and passionate education support teacher. I find that just fascinating of how you did that. So, firstly, what does that award refer to? And then what does it mean to you to be able to win that award?
Hmm. Yes, I was very privileged to be nominated for this award by my school. So, the award is for the West Australian Education Support Schools Principals Association. So, I won the Primary Teacher of the Year award for WA, which is really, I'm very honored still. I'm very shocked still. It was really nice. I was nominated by my deputy and my principal. So they put together a little application nomination for me and they sent it through. They then told me about it after and they were like, "Will you accept this?" And I was like, "Of course. Of course. I don't know who wouldn't accept this."
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then we went to an awards night maybe 2 or 3 weeks later. Me, my friend from school, a principal, and two deputies, and it was on the river. It was very fancy. It was very fun. And then I won, which was amazing. I feel like I didn't expect to win, but I was, as we all go, we hope that we win.
Of
So
course
I,
you
I,
do.
I couldn't even remember the rest of the awards. It was all a blur for me, but it was amazing. And then, yes, my principal was so proud. She hangs it up in the office, always pointing it out to people as they come in. I have one at home, which is hanging up as well. So I love it.
Good.
And then the way it felt when winning, it was, like I said, it was a shock. It's still a bit surreal to think that in my first year that this is something that I achieved. It kind of made me feel really confident in having a go and putting my foot down if something's not working or having it gave me a bit more of a voice, I think. So I feel a bit more confident in that what I'm doing is right or at least on the right track. I'm making progress and changes and it definitely made me feel a bit more validated being so young in the field. So it was really, really, it was very inspiring to win.
Mm. I like the part that um, it took your deputy and principal just said to themselves, she's worthy of this, and actually went and wrote it out with not a lot of criteria that goes with it.
Mm,
You had nothing to do with it. So it's not like sometimes when you have these nominations, you have to write in, fill in a form. So yes, you've got to talk
yeah.
about yourself. Someone spoke about you And those accolades and that understanding, I think that must also say a lot, that not only are you the best in WA at your job for 2024, but also that validation, like you said, from your principal and your deputy. And we do need that. We need people to validate us
Mm.
in such a stressful at times, but quite rewarding particular job. Now, I'm interested that you didn't always really like school when you were a
Mm.
young lady, and just tell us a little bit about your primary school years and a little bit about your background about how or why you became a teacher, considering that it wasn't your favourite place to be.
Yeah, so I didn't enjoy my primary school or really my high school years. I come from a family of teachers, like a lot of teachers that we know. My mum, my granddad, my granny, my other granny, my uncles, my aunties, they're all teachers. And they all love their job, but they also said, don't do it. They were like, it's really hard, don't do it. I was like, no, I'm gonna do it. So from being even like 9 years old at home, I'd be teaching my 3-year-old sister verbs and getting frustrated when she would like not be able to speak it back. Lining up your teddies and doing roll call and things. Very shared, common experience, I think, amongst teachers these days.
That's right.
Um, yeah, but no, in primary school, I started off really strong. I was like, yep, I want to be a teacher. This is amazing. And it just was not an engaging space. You would get in trouble for speaking or for having any form of like emotion. You weren't allowed to express it. And I was just thinking, I feel like I can do better than what they are showing me right now. They're not showing me their best teaching, that's for sure. And then when, in year 5 and year 6, when the hormones kick in of all the kids and it gets all a little bit narky between the students, the teachers should be the ones to, help rein it in and help you support you through the tough times. And I just found that they didn't. It took till year 10 when I had a really amazing maths teacher for me to kind of feel, okay, school is fine, school is a safe space. But I really wanted to make it a safe space for the kids because my experience was not good.
Mm. So let's call out to that year 10 teacher, shall we? And let's talk about them for a tip. What was it that, firstly, who were they, and what did they do that sort of clicked you on that it can be engaging, this
Mm.
teaching game?
Yeah, well, her name was Miss Pullendra. She was my maths teacher. And I feel like what she did was that maths was never my strong suit. I was fine. I was average. I was doing okay. But she was really positive and she would tell you if you were right or wrong, but doing it in a funny way. Or she would, take the time out of her lesson to sit next to you for 2 minutes and explain the problem, which I really appreciated. That not a lot of teachers give that special attention. There's no time, but I felt like she made the time to sit with all of us. It wasn't just me. And she was so funny. And I really appreciated that in, year 10 maths. So,
Absolutely. It's lovely, isn't it? I think we all have uh, memories of that special teacher, and it's what brings us back for the teachers that are out there, the educators that are out there doing the job, and when it's like the chaos is all around us, we do make a difference, but it mightn't be talked about for years later, and I reckon that's something worth continuing through, and it's
mm,
that particular year 10 teacher inspired you, just turned on those lights, and here you are inspiring other young people, which is exactly what we need. Now, I'm interested in we talked about what we learnt about ourselves, the validation, the confidence, the voice, which is beautiful. And in any of these sorts of stories, there's always a few people along the journey. I'm interested to know, have there been some prominent people in your short career that has inspired you, and at those times when it's like getting pretty difficult, that actually said
mm.
those magic words or pat on the back? Who were they, and what did they do? And you're more than welcome to, once again, let's shout out and reach out and talk about and celebrate these great peoples in education.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm quite blessed and lucky to have had quite a few almost role models in my short little career, but I've had quite a few principals in my time, but I've had one that I had for maybe 2 years. Her name is Kylie Jones. She supported me through all of my pracs, uni, and then becoming a teacher and being in those graduate years. She showed me how to love and empathize with these students and to help the families. And she really helped me make connections with these kids. And I feel like that's something I'll never forget, because I find sometimes the hardest part about
Mm,
helping anyone is having that connection. If you don't have it, you're not going to do anything. So
mm.
she was amazing. I also have my two friends that taught me how to do ed support, and they let me into their rooms every day in my dots. I just go and sit in there and chat to the kids and chat to them. And it's Anna and Sean Ward. They were amazing. They, even when they came and visited me, yeah, as you said, saying the things like, oh, you're actually doing a good job, or oh, I loved how you did that. I'm going to take that and do it in my room. And that really makes you feel really loved. But I think my number one supporter, apart from my mum, who's been amazing, would be my principal, Helen Taylor. She, I'm lucky enough to have had her in my school since I started. So I feel like she's really molded me into who I am now, and genuinely couldn't have gone as far or done any of this without her support or even her respect. And she has been so amazing at helping me be a leader and giving me a voice and making me feel confident in that what I'm doing is right. I feel safe going to her if something's not working, or even just if I need a chat. She's always there, and she's just been so amazing. And then, yeah, I just feel like I'll have to follow her when she goes to her next one.
Oh, that's that lovely words, and they're all true, all genuine, absolutely. So let's get back to those little people again. You have a saying, high effort, high reward. Uh, Using that saying that you have high effort, high reward, what's some examples that you can give us a bit of an insight what it's like to be in your world, um, in your classroom with a little person maybe?
hmm Yeah, last year I had a student who really struggled with emotional regulation, really just had a tough time if things weren't going their way, or if they were losing, or if they were too hot or hungry or thirsty, and not being able to verbally communicate that they need a drink or that they need a break. Instead of verbally communicating it, they would communicate it through an aggressive behavior, which may be a pinch, a bite, a push of the desk, anything where it was unsafe for them and the other students in the class. So the EAs and I would have weekly meetings about how to make sure this student was safe, but also that all of the other students and we as the adults were also safe as well. So the things that we put in would be, one-on-one attention, whether it's with me or an EA, almost never leave their side. We just didn't want to put them in a situation where they were vulnerable to feeling a big emotion and then having a really big communication. It's not fair to them. They can't control it. We would do a lot of work as a whole class, but also individually with this student on showing safe behaviors and showing what they look like and how we can get to that. So instead of just expecting them to be able to regulate their emotions, we really needed to start from scratch and go, right, if we're having a big emotion, you just need to walk outside, because that's a safe space. And if you
Mm,
get hurt or anything, you're outside in a safe space. The next thing we did was that at recess and lunch, if they wanted to stay in a different playground away from other kids, that was usually a sign that they were feeling a little bit unsettled. So we would say, no worries, if you need that right now, that's okay. So it was constantly just being vigilant, putting in safety measures to make sure they were okay. And then by the end of the year, we kind of got to the point where this student would say, I need a break, or I don't want to be around, there's too many people here. So the high efforts of the year really had quite a nice reward because they were starting to identify in themselves when they needed to be removed and in a safe space, which that was a really good one. It was really hard for the year, but I feel like we got somewhere in the end, which is really good for him for next year.
Mm. And you use that word, really hard, um,
Mm.
but it was actually, I like that word vigilance. It's just something that you just did and you just kept doing. And I think that's just I reckon that's the space. So it's hard at the time, but at the end of the
Mm.
day, you get this reward, and it's been through that constant just working that through. And I suppose for the listeners, you can nearly multiply that through by 10 because those sorts of things are happening a fair few times.
Yeah, you're doing
And
it for each of those kids.
yeah, 100%. And so is success just a couple of steps forward for your
Mm.
students? And I dare say, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, it's not about putting something out in front like we've got to get to this point by the end of the year. It's actually, if we can just start working towards this point, and success, is it just that even if they move forward, not by how much, but they have moved forward, that's success? Is that how you see it? Or maybe you may have something different considering you're the expert.
No, I do. I agree. It's not, you can't put a physical number or a strategy or a goal by the end of the year because some of these kids, like I said before, they're going to have the same goal or focus up until year 12, which is sitting in a chair. So success for those students looks really different for success for students in mainstream, where I guess you would measure success by more of the data and the assessments and how well they're accessing the curriculum. The success in ed support is definitely smaller steps. So last year, we would set high expectations for all of our students. They knew that they were held to a higher standard, but the standard was different for each kid because you don't want to make it too hard because they're
Mm.
never going to get there, and that's not fair. So success for them might be one of our students refused to pick up a pencil, and then by the end of it, even just touching a pencil, that was a huge milestone. That's a huge goal. That's success for them. Another one might be success in, like I said, not knowing when to take a break and hurting someone to then saying, I think I need a break.
Mm.
Um, it's
Mm.
definitely those. I feel like you get a lot more success in ed support sometimes. You just forget that it's a success because it's such a small step. So I feel like it's definitely, you make such gains with these students through, walking in the classroom and maybe not screaming and crying that morning. That's a huge gain. That's a huge successful moment. But because you're so busy, you forget to celebrate that success.
Mm.
That is
Yeah.
definitely something. Yeah, you definitely forget to celebrate the small wins, but there are so many. They're just really small wins, but are
Yeah.
amazing. They're huge to those kids.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm interested in, you talked quickly about the curriculum. Now you say that
Hmm.
you still have a curriculum focus, but for me
Hmm.
it's like, wow, big diversity, can't necessarily pick up a pencil, self-regulation. What's your blend of this for the students' needs versus the actual curriculum? Can you just give us a little bit of an idea of what that might look like?
Hmm. All of our students are on an individualized education plan. So, where they have been identified at a level of the curriculum, whether they're at pre primary, year one, or lower, and if they're on the ABLE curriculum, which is just below the kindy. Once that we've identified which level they're at, we then put in goals and strategies for them. So a goal in phonics might be to, uh, it could almost be to like copy the sound that the teacher is saying. That could be one of their goals, or it could be to read CVC words like cat, mat, sat.
Mm.
So you would then identify a goal. for all of these students, they're all different, and then strategies on how to teach it. So the strategy might be exposed to a whole class phonics lesson, work one-on-one with an adult in phonics classes. It might be that they use an iPad to communicate and verbalize the sounds. So all of our students are on an IEP, so you've got 10 running at the same time. So what I do is we do a whole class math session where I kind of base the lesson or the little warm up, shall I say, at where most of the kids are sitting. So you've got some kids that are just exposed to it. They're not quite ready for that level yet, but they're exposed, they're in the class, they're part of the room. And then you've got some kids that are a little bit higher, but they're actually answering everything. So the other kids are still getting exposure as well. So we do a whole class math session, or you then take a really big break, or if anyone needs something to drink or eat or go to the toilet, you then go back to your seats. We've got constant small groups running. Some kids will need to work one-on-one with an adult in order to succeed or access the lesson. And other kids will be able to work maybe with me and 3 other students. And we run our small group sessions, and it's the same in maths and phonics. The groups will change in the activities, but they're always doing the activities at their level. We're doing something now that where they're in HAS and health, if they're in year 4, they deserve the right to be exposed to the year 4 curriculum, whether it be you're doing First Fleet in history and they may not be able to hold a pencil yet. What they would be doing is looking at boats, or maybe making a boat and watching it float on the water, coloring it in, labeling them, watching videos or pictures. You will then have other students that are looking at explorers. So they're looking at who actually rowed these, or who was on the boats, why were they going there? Yeah, and then you've got other kids that are kind of sitting in the middle where they're doing a little bit of both. They're looking at the boats, but we're trying to push them to look more higher in the curriculum. So it's constant exposure, but also doing things at their level.
Yeah. Beautiful. So I'm interested, just what would be 3 strategies if I was about to start or thinking about, or I dare say a lot of your strategies would be able to help any particular educator. So what are your 3 strategies, your top ones, that you would tell someone like myself about to walk into a classroom and be as good as you? Where would I start?
I would say the biggest one I find is to talk to them like they are in year 4. So if you're going to be talking to a student that's nonverbal and they're not going to talk to you back, that doesn't mean that you don't have a conversation or give them the right of meeting you or introducing you. It can be a little bit awkward at first because you do expect a response, but then once you realize that these kids are listening and they're taking it in, they're just not looking at you or verbalizing it, but they all deserve the right to be treated like they're kids. Another one is give them a lot of wait time. So you might need to wait 10 seconds for them to answer or reply or look at you or any form of response, but some kids just take longer to comprehend what you've said. So if you are constantly stepping in and going, oh, what's for breakfast? Oh, okay, let me help you. Did you have Wheat Bix or toast? You're taking away their chance to communicate and have a go with you. I would say giving them wait time, at least 10 seconds, I would say. And then the third one would be give them the chance to do it before you do it for them. There's no such thing as failure or getting it wrong in mainstream or ed support. It's just that they will be struggling with it at the moment or they can't do it yet. But even if they're having a go, they're showing you that they're willing to learn. They're showing you that they want to be there and they want to be accessing what you're telling them. So definitely give them the independence and the autonomy to have a go first.
Wow. Beautiful. So it's that talking skill, regardless, no judgment. There's that wait time. And I think even as humans, sorry, not as humans, but just when we're around others, you know, I don't think we do wait enough. It's like, oh, okay, you have an answer within a second. I better just jump in. So yeah, just that wait time is a great idea, and that other little piece at the end there, which was just about giving them that space, I suppose, and to allow them to have a shot,
Yeah.
So, and again, I think we could actually learn a lot more of that from that is just allowing ourselves to fail, inverted commas, and fail fast, just allows us to learn quicker. I think that's one of the biggest life lessons is through the mistakes that we make. And
Yeah, definitely.
everybody's going to be in the same boat. So I'm interested. Wow. So a lot must go on in a day. There's the 5 adults, there's 10 children. I dare say the parents must be fairly involved as well. Would that be right?
Yeah, they're very involved.
Yeah, lots of good conversations there, I dare
Amazing.
say.
Yeah.
So I'm interested, how do you get a life balance? I'd feel like
Mm.
after all of the work that you're doing in a day like that, it would be pretty exhausting. But you've got to come back onto the pitch again tomorrow, the next day, and do it again. But do it again with the same amount of enthusiasm as you started the day before. So, do you have a bit of a strategy or some things that you've put in place over a period of time that really allow you to continue through? What would be something that you really get along with in regards to you and the team, etc. So, how do you sort of pull that together?
Mhm. Yeah, we found out pretty quickly that there are some really great days that you have, and then there are some really tough, hard days that you go home and you just wonder why you're doing it. Like the
Mm,
day was so hard, nothing got through.
mm,
um there was constant battles that you're picking all day, and it's absolutely exhausting. So we as a team, me and my EAs, we realized really quickly that all of us were going home taking on the weight and the guilt of the
mm,
things that went wrong during the day, but we're all thinking the exact same things. And we really needed to remember that we're working in a space that we can't control a lot of what happens. We can only
mm,
control what we can control. So we started doing, whenever there was a really tough day, we would get together at the end of the day, and we would have, it wasn't a meeting, there was no one leading it. It was just a really big debrief about what happened, and if you were someone that was really close to the action, as I would say, you kind of spoke about what you think went wrong, because the chances are that nothing you did was wrong. And then everyone else would say that, and they would say, you actually couldn't control what happened. You did as best as you could under the circumstances. And then it does take a little bit of that weight off you for when you go home. So we found that really helpful. It was a really safe space. I would say when I thought that things went wrong, the EAs would say it. We would then talk about if there was something that went wrong, maybe, and I had made a mistake or I had used the wrong word or language. We would then speak about how we can avoid that happening next time. So it was like the future planning as well, a bit of crisis planning, where if something did go wrong, it was a really non judgmental space for us to then go, okay, amazing. That's not your fault. It was a really high stressful situation. You did really well. Maybe next time we can try it like this. And we found that really helped. And then luckily by the end of the year we weren't having too many meetings anymore, which was nice. But it was good, and I found that a lot of the EAs usually called these meetings as well. It wasn't me saying, "Oh,
mm.
that was a bad day, let's talk." It was very much they would say, "Maggie, that was not a good day. Can we chat?" I'm like, "Yes, absolutely, let's go." So that really helped us with like a lot of the burnout.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that are just going through my mind as you're speaking about that. There's that great space of psychological safety
Mm-hmm.
that you created together, be it intentional or it just happened to be organic, where someone could say, hey, that wasn't a good day, and then boom, everyone's in. Okay, let's have a conversation about that. But also, it's not long. It might only be 10 or 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling that it doesn't become just a big vent
Mm-hmm.
conversation. It's actually what I call a vision conversation. It's seeing what happened, reflecting on it, digesting that, and then just going, okay, cool, let's just move on from that. But what could we do better? Yes, but it's also sometimes it's just like you said. It's we can't control some of these things, and let's just keep reminding ourselves. And I dare say, but remember, this happened today, and remember that this happened today. So sometimes we have that unfortunate situation. We just take that negative bias, and the last thing that was um, difficult just becomes the whole day. When actually
Absolutely.
there were some things in there that you did really well, and also that you would say that towards the end of the year we didn't need so many meetings. But it's not to say that it was it wasn't happening. It's
Mm.
just that we could digest things a bit more, and
Yeah.
it gives that balance between the team, and then each team member then could go away and do their thing as well to come back the next day, and that's what makes, I believe, that team really work well. So what I've really heard there is you're not on a time frame. Boom, siren goes. I'm going home and everybody's got this stress on their shoulders. You're actually saying, if we need to stay behind, we're all good for that. And that 10 minutes
Mm.
makes a massive difference to the rest of your day. So
It did, yeah.
highly commended on you doing that. And it's a great strategy, especially in your situation, but also that anyone can do that. It doesn't
Mm.
take long for someone to remind us that we're doing a great job,
Yeah.
regardless of the situation. So I dare say there's a lot of action happening in your classroom. You're 4 years out. You're getting a real feel for this. I'm interested in, where do you see yourself in another 5 years,
Mm.
Maggie? What are you aspiring to?
Yeah, that's a good question. In 5 years, I would see myself still working in the ed support space.
Cool.
I feel like once you're in it, I feel like it's hard to leave because there's too much love. I would like to see myself maybe doing a little bit more in the leadership space, maybe being a bit more of a mentor or a guide to some grad teachers or newer
Mm,
teachers, whether that's in mainstream or ed support, helping them through.
mm.
I think the skills intertwine. So I think that would
Yes,
be,
definitely.
yeah, I definitely see myself doing that. Hopefully just keeping on doing what I'm doing and learning new skills, maybe working in some complex behavior needs or some support with big behaviors, maybe. I find that would be really helpful, but definitely where I am in ed support, but maybe just doing more in the leadership space, helping others.
That's beautiful. Well, the education system and anybody that's in your classroom, thank goodness for that you're going to be still there. That's magnificent. So, where do you find your happy place, or how do you refill your cup each day so you can come back?
Yeah, I have a pretty strict routine during the week of finding my happy place. It's
Mm,
in the car on the way home, I listen to a podcast.
good.
I will get home, or I'll call my mum and my partner on the way home. I'll vent to them about the day, and then the
Mm,
venting is finished when I get home.
yep.
I'll have a cup of tea, a
Yes.
strong tea with a sugar, and then I'll watch an episode of Friends just to kind of calm down. I've rewatched the series a lot, as you can imagine. So that's my happy place.
Fantastic. You could nearly be a contestant on that program called Hard Quiz, where they've got that expert
Oh,
subject. And you could
I
be
would like to
friends.
say I could, but I'm probably not that much of an expert. It's more just background noise these days.
Cool, cool. Um, Now, I'm always interested. What would you say to an educator or a person thinking about becoming an educator? So, what's your inspirational elevator pitch to say why or why not you should be
Yeah.
you be in education?
I think I would say to someone if they weren't sure or if they were looking to go into the teaching space, I would say that it will be one of the hardest things that you will do. Working with these kids, the families, the other staff, the department, it's so hard. It's so exhausting. It's so draining, but it's also one of the most rewarding things that you'll do. The success that you see and that you feel yourself, um, it's you get addicted to that feeling. You can't get it anywhere else except from work. So yes, it's one of the hardest but one of the best things that you'll do, I think. But I definitely think you need to love it. If you don't love it, you won't be able to put up with it, as people say. Yeah.
Beautiful answer. And I love the balance. And I love that you actually said what it is, but also what the reward is. And I
Yeah.
100% agree. I think a lot of, like you said at the very beginning, talking about coming in to be an educator is, like most people, it's sort of like a calling rather than a job.
Yeah.
It's just something that directed them towards that way, which is beautiful. So look, we've had a lovely conversation, and I just, everything that you've said just shows us of what courageous educators look like. And there's plenty of amazing, courageous educators out there. So I'm really glad that we got to have an insight into what it's like in a education support classroom and as a teacher with yourself. I'm so glad that you included your EAs. I know how amazing they must be with you as well. So thank you very much, Maggie Dead. I should tell you when Maggie Dead, who's just as good.
I'm
Maggie,
okay with that.
Maggie Bott, I really appreciate you coming along. It's fantastic, and I love all of your story, and I really look forward to seeing more about your career in the future.
Yes, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been really nice to talk about it with someone that doesn't necessarily know, so thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much, Maggie Bott. Bye. Wow. Thank you for listening or viewing the Conversations with Courageous Educators podcast. I hope you take something away that improves the best version of yourself more often. I'm passionate about education and supporting educators in the tough job of nurturing tomorrow's citizens. I follow this passion by delivering staff wellbeing workshops, middle leadership programs, and leadership coaching for educators. If you have 2 minutes and would like to know how mentally fit you are to handle the rigours of teaching, then visit my website, www.by-george.com.au. That was www.by-george.com.au, and complete the 2-minute mental fitness diagnostic, which produces a report that affirms your strengths and challenges your growth opportunities. There is a positive ripple effect when educators are the best version of themselves more often. If you believe this as well and would like to implement the change, then be a courageous educator and contact me for a conversation. My details are in the show notes, or email luke@bygeorge.com.au, and that's by-george.com.au. Continue being courageous. Thank you.